Happy Preptober, friends. I am super excited to get started this week. I'm going to be going through my outline, which I actually made prior to my self-care September. I haven't looked at it in a month, so I definitely need to go through it before November hits. I'm going to be going through and making sure that everything that I have planned is in the spot where it needs to be and makes sense. I'm also going to show you how I set up my books and how I outline my books in Scrivener. I don't use all of the functions that they have, but I do use most of them. So I'll be going through that. I've taken some stuff out and I might blur some stuff out simply because I do want to publish this book one day, but I'll try and show you as much as possible and make sure that you guys know what I'm talking about and what I'm doing. I did heavily use the Saves the Cat kind of outline process and kind of shifted it to make sure that it worked with my specific genre and my specific book. And reading through that book, it gave me a lot of ideas of where the story could go and different ideas of where I could take it. So one of the things that I'll be doing while I go through the outline is making sure that all of those make sense and that I chose the right avenues to take. So I'm going to start doing that, and I'll go through it with you guys as I'm doing it. So let's jump in. Okay, so first off, this is how I organize my series. So I've got everything in, so we've got the draft, and then when you open that, I've got my series arc here in a folder. And these are all of the books that I currently have planned out. I don't have titles for most of it. I think book 9 is the one that I have a title for. Obviously, I don't have those included here since they're not solidified, and I am hoping to publish. Just to give you an idea, I've got my characters in here. I've got them organized into their various groups, and then I've also, I don't think I used, the research I do have some stuff in, fun. And some of that, types of creatures, is just ideas of what I could do in the future, not necessarily things that I'm going to put into this specific book. But as you can see, I've got the entire series in this one Scrivener file. So one thing that I will say is that when I'm actually writing the book, I'm not going to have all of this stuff in the Scrivener file because that would make it a huge file. So I'm going to make a copy, and then I'll start writing the book inside that copied file. But I don't want to write the entire book inside the same file that I have all of the other books, because that would, no computer would be able to open that file once it was, completed. So I'm going to make them smaller and have each book have its own, essentially, version of this setup. But to get into the actual setup for my outline, I've got everything outlined into 3 acts. And the one thing that I really liked about the Saves the Cat outline was that it had the specific word counts that went along with each act. And that really helped me be able to pace my book and know where I was at and really how much more I needed to write before I was going to be at a point where I needed to be. So if we go into Act 1, we've got our chapter 1 or prologue. I'm not sure if it's going to be the first chapter or the prologue yet, but we'll see. And then I've got chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, / maybe all of that in chapter 3, depending on how long chapter 3 ends up being and how long chapter 4 ends up being. I might just smush those two together. And then I don't have it opened up. Here, I guess I'll just open these ones up. So then if I open these up, you can see I've got individual cards inside each of these chapters. And these cards are, so if we click on, well, we're already in it. So if we click on the first chapter, and then let me make those smaller. Let's see, cards across. 4. Why aren't you doing it? Cards across. 4. I don't know why it's not editing it. Obviously, I'm really good at using Scrivener, guys. That's frustrating. All right, either way. So I've got all of my cards in here. So you can see that they have all of this information. So this is just like a breakdown of what I want this specific scene to be, and a breakdown of what I want this specific scenes to be, and then they all add up together. And the nice thing about this in Scrivener is that means that if I decide I want this scene to be in the next chapter, I can just, after I'm done writing it, move it into the next chapter. I don't have to, or I can just like move it like this. I don't have to, you know, like you would in Word, copy it and then paste it. And after you're done looking for where you're going, I can just immediately move it over there. The other nice thing that this gives you is the ability to actually see where everything is, and give yourself like, I don't know, like a reminder of what each scene is about individually. So that's how I've got that organized. And then I've got each act also has obviously far more of those. I'm aiming for about 3,000 words per chapter, which is why 3 and 4 might become their own chapters depending on how many words they are. It's looking like it's going to be about 80,000 words, 80 to 90. We'll see though. I'm not going to be sure how long it'll be until I'm done writing it. But that's how I've got my outline set up. I wish I could show you. So you can make all of these smaller. Cards across 4. Keyword chips. Use small font. I don't know why it's not changing it for me. I don't know why it's not changing for me. Either way. You can change it. It might be because I'm using the screen recorder right now. But, oh, it says first draft to do. That's interesting. Is that because I have status? Oh! See, I learn new things every time I use Scrivener. So, so on the first chapter, I have its status as first draft and not revised draft. But if I change that to revised draft, when I go up to Act 1, it'll say revised draft. That's actually really fancy. I really like that. I like that a lot. Learn a new thing every day. Anyway, so I'm going to go through and start. The first thing I'm going to do is just read through all of my cards. And I think I'm going to do that on this page, so that I can see everything together. The baby woke up and the dog's barking. All right, so I'm going to go take care of the baby and then I'll jump into this. Okay, so the way I organize my books is it's similar to the way it's done in Saves the Cat. I like to do around 20% of the book in the first act. Well, I'm going to take that back. I like to do, in the first act, typically, I would say 10 to 20%. I really prefer when I'm reading the meaty bits of the book, so I want there to be excitement from almost the very beginning. I want a little bit of intro, but the majority of the book I want to be in that middle chunk. And then I want the last bit to be, this last bit is, honestly, there's a little bit more in the third act than I normally would put because I was going off of the Saves the Cat outlining process. Usually I would have a little bit less because I like there to be, like I said, I want that meat of the story and those bits that keep you turning the pages. I want that to be the majority of the book. And that's really what I consider the second act, is really the parts that make you keep going. So then Act 3 is really just tying everything up and tying up any loose ends that you want to tie up. Obviously, if you're going for a series the way I am, I'm not going to tie up all of the loose ends. I'm going to leave some of those hanging, either to be remedied in the second book or to be remedied in books down the line. So that's definitely something that you want to think about while you're outlining your book, is how much you want in each section. Because if you just put everything in Act 1 or everything in Act 2 and then nothing in Act 3, obviously you're going to have a book that's wildly off balance. But it's also going to help you with your pacing, because you don't want to have your book have only, 2 or 3 paragraphs of intro and then just jump right into the plot, because that's not going to be enough intro, especially if you're writing something, anything in the fantasy or non-common day genre. You need a lot of intro for books like that. You need to set up what the world looks like, at least a basic view of it. So for example, in my world, I have a magic system, and I need to at least set the basis up for that magic system so that the reader can understand what I'm talking about in further chapters down the line. And if I don't set that up, then it's not going to make any sense to anyone. I need to set up the werewolves, and I need to set up at least a basis for how the werewolves work and how they fit into the world, or else it's not going to make sense. But I also don't want to have so much intro and so much Act 1 that it overpowers everything else. And I think that's something else that new writers often do, is they put way too much information and way too much starting information, and then there's nothing to be learned further on down the line, when really you could release information and little tidbits that don't necessarily need to be there in the beginning in order for the book to make sense. You can release those further down the line instead of releasing them all at once. And that makes it so that the reader is really learning about things in a more natural way, rather than just having all of this information thrown at them all at once. So then in Act 2, I really want the meaty bits, and I want to make sure that we've got the scenes in there that are going to be forcing the reader to think what's happening next. And I really want that Act 2 to be the part where the reader is seeing what's wrong with all of the characters and what's wrong with all the scenarios that they're being put in, and maybe even trying to figure out what's going to happen next before the actual characters do themselves. And this Act 2 is definitely, I think when I put a book down and decide not to pick it up, usually about halfway through, the beginning to halfway through of Act 2 is typically when I do that. If I don't drop it in Act 1, I'll drop it somewhere in Act 2, because if you don't keep the reader entertained through that second act, then what's the point in keeping them in the third act? So you want to keep, twists and turns, and you want to keep them wanting to read throughout that Act 2 instead of just having it be filler until you get to the end. So then when you get to your Act 3, you want to make sure that your third act, I want to make sure that my third act at least, has the biggest twist of all. Or if it's not a twist in the story, at the very least something that makes the reader gasp, something that makes them want to read another book, something that makes them want to continue reading and sad that the book is over. And I think that's really what a good end act is making the reader sad that the book has come to a close and hoping for another book. At the same time as leaving them satisfied, because you don't want to have the end of your book be something where the reader isn't satisfied at the end. Because that's just, they're not going to want to read the next book if they're not satisfied. And I think that a lot of new writers get hung up on that they want the reader to not be satisfied, thinking that that will force them to want to continue reading, when in actuality, if you're not satisfied at the end of the book, why would you? And I think that there are a lot of new writers who make that mistake where at the end of the book, they want the reader to kind of be unsatisfied because they think that that will push the reader to want the next book or push them to keep asking questions. But in my experience as a reader, at the end of a book, if I'm not satisfied, or if I get the feeling that the author is just kind of playing with me, I don't want to pick up the next book. I want to feel safe and secure that even if the book is going, even if the characters are going to be put into these horrible situations, I prefer the satisfaction of knowing that they're still going to be there. There's not going to be some sort of entire world of people that I'm going to have to get used to a completely new set of characters. One good example of this is the Game of Thrones series, where you've got so many characters and so many of them die right off the bat. I honestly wasn't interested in continuing reading the series. And for some readers, obviously, they loved that. I'm just not one of them. So that's not how I write. When I'm creating and crafting my story, I'm crafting a story that I want to read. And I think that's really what we all need to be doing. We don't need to be crafting a story that we think our readers want to read. We need to be crafting a story that we want to read, because we are our own readers. As long as you're a voracious reader, as you are a writer, you're going to be fine with creating a story that other readers are going to like. But once you go down that path of trying to make something that, even if you think you would like it, that you might not actually like, or if you try and focus solely on writing something that you think a particular audience is going to like, that's really when we get off course and where we find ourselves not knowing where to go next, because we're not writing something that we ourselves would read. So now I'm going to jump into editing my outline as it is so far. You might be able to hear the nugget in the background. Hopefully she allows me to continue for a while longer, but we'll see. I'm going to jump into it.
So now you're here again, knocking at my door. A little too late for, I'm sorry for. The lights went out 'cause you kept cutting the cord, and I started to fade into your gray. See, I finally opened up my eyes, and I saw me coming back to life. Bet I'd be better without you inside. It's time to be someone I wanna recognize. The future starts right now. I made a reservation, but you never came, so I'm checking out. The fire you stole away, I know one day we'll come back around. The future is now. The future is now. The future is now. I waited for you in the passenger seat. There's only so far I can ride in your dreams. While you were chasing everything else but me, I'm starting to break out from your gray. See, I finally opened up my eyes, and I saw me coming back to life. That I'd be better without you inside. It's time to be someone I wanna recognize. The future starts right now. I made a reservation, but you never came, so I'm checking out. The fire you stole away, I know one day we'll come back around. The future is now. The future is now. I'm not backing down, 'cause the future is now. Not backing down, 'cause the future is now.
So I got to chapter 5 and Nash just woke up, so I'm gonna go and get her. I've edited a couple things already. I had a transition between scenes that didn't make sense, where there was a character in one scene that didn't occur in the next. So I fixed that. And then I put a note for one of the scenes where it's kind of a pivotal scene that sets off the story, but it's not actually in the story. So the main character has this scene in a nightmare, essentially, and I need to work out some of the kinks in it. So I marked that in red so I can make sure that I go back and go through and fix that before I start writing for Nano. But right now I'm gonna go and get Nash, and hopefully I'll be able to do a little bit more while she's awake, but I might have to wait until she sleeps again. If she sleeps again without me holding her, we'll see. But I'll keep going through this as I can and keep vlogging it. So Nash has joined us now. As you can see, I've got the baby gate up. She's behind me on her playmat, jingling away, and I'm sure you can hear her. Our nap was not as long as I hoped for. As long as you guys are planners, you should definitely be outlining. Scrivener is definitely not the only way to do it. I have only started outlining in Scrivener since the last Nanowrimo, which is when I got the discount code from Winning and used it to purchase Scrivener at a discounted price. And I love it so far. But there are a lot of features in Scrivener that you can also do in a Word document. I think that the nicest part of Scrivener that I like that can be done in a Word document is being able to jump from one chapter to another without having to just like continuously scroll or do a word search for chapter 2. And you can do that with using the headlines feature of Word, which is like at the top corner of the page. It's just a lot easier in Scrivener than it is in Word, but it can be done in Word. But whether you're outlining in Scrivener, Word, in your own brain, on your cell phone, in Google Docs, or just on a piece of paper, I think that it's definitely important that you keep everything organized, and that's super important. But also that you're going through and rereading it, because one of the problems that I really find that I have is when I'm nearing the end of my outline, sometimes I've been working on it for so long that I've forgotten what was at the beginning of my outline. So one of the things that I try and do is every time I work on my outline, I go through it first and I read through almost every single line to see and make sure that everything that I've written so far makes sense with everything that happened in the past in the book. Because otherwise I honestly forget. Let me know how you guys outline down in the comments. I'd love to hear it. I know a lot of people do sticker outlines and sticky note outlines. I've never tried one of those, mostly because I don't like having to have like a poster board. I definitely prefer to have everything contained in one place and have it contained digitally, because number one, it means I have to spend less. Obviously, with being a military family, I don't like having to move things around. I have definitely thought about it, and I might do it maybe for the next book and just see if that helps me with the process at all. But that's definitely a good way to outline if you guys need something tactile and physical to use. Other options that you can do are, instead of doing sticky notes on poster boards, you can do them on the wall. You can use index cards. There's so many index card outlining methods out there. I have friends who have used, you know, the spiderweb bubble thought method to think of ideas, and they actually have used that as an outlining method as well. I'll try and find some information on that maybe in a different video, but I don't outline that way, so I can't show you right now. But whatever your outlining method, let me know down below and maybe we can learn from each other and give each other some better ideas.
Do you remember those long summers? We played water fights, stayed up at night and dreamed of ways through the world. I still remember the first time I kissed you, the look on your face as I grazed your lips with my lips. Our worlds collided. Those were the days when everything was possible. Our dreams were alive. We had a fire inside. Those were the days. Those were the days. I'll always remember that cold night you told me we're not two, but we're gonna be three. In 8 months we'll be a family. Those were the days when everything was possible. Our dreams were alive. We had a fire inside. Those were the days. Right from the beginning, I knew that I loved you. Girl, we've got something amazing. It's just me and you, still so much to do. Right from the beginning, I knew that I loved you. Girl, we've got something amazing. It's just me and you, still so much to do. We've been together for as long as I can remember. We have history, made memories. I choose you and me, baby. These are the days, and everything's still possible. Our dreams are alive. We've got that fire inside. These are the days. These are the days, and everything's still possible. Our dreams are alive. We've got that fire inside. These are the days. These are the days.
So I'm in Act 2, editing the outline. I'm in Chapter 8. So far, there's really been only a couple small little holes in the plot that I found that I need to close up. I added a couple more spaces where I really need to just work on the scenes and make sure that they're a little more fleshed out, so the writing goes a bit easier. Other than that, I'm just continuing on. So far, I was really worried that when I went back through it that I really wouldn't like it. But so far, I'm pleasantly surprised that I do like it as much as I do. So I'm still super excited to write it for NaNoWrimo. I'm glad that I didn't read it and hate it. There's definitely a lot of stuff that I need to flesh out and think about a little bit more before NaNoWriMo hits. But so far it's looking pretty good. I think that the further on I get, the worse it's gonna get, but we'll find out. So it's Thursday now. I haven't gotten to go through very much of the outline. Nash is teething right now, so she's really, really needy. She's actually slept 2 hours over the time when she usually wakes up for her like nighttime sleep. Her gums are just really hurting her and she wasn't able to sleep very well last night. So while normally I would get her up, I think I'm just gonna let her sleep as long as possible and try and get some more writing done, or some more editing done, I mean. I've gone through some bits of the plot and I think that I added too many similar scenarios into it, so I'm trying to condense those and figure out how to change that around with still maintaining the plot line. So that's what I'm working on right now. In the story, there's a series of murders, but I don't know, in my head it seems really repetitious, I suppose. So I think I might leave them in there and then just add an extra scene of Halima like trying to figure it out, or just like condense 2 of the murder scenes into one scene together. Not like have them still be individual murder scenes, but sorry, I have like a bug bite that's really bugging me. Oh, puns. Not condense them into like the same murder scene, but 2 individual writing scenes. You know what I mean. So I'm gonna work on that. Hopefully it makes the plotline better. I'm always so nervous whenever I make edits that they're gonna make the story worse than it was before rather than better. I don't know. Do you guys ever feel like that? Let me know. Anyway, so I'm probably about 15, I don't know, about halfway through editing the outline. I'm hoping to get the rest of it done today and tomorrow. I'll let you know how that goes. Also, sorry for this husband t-shirt loveliness going on. Nash still sleeps in our bedroom, so I can't shower or change until she decides to wake up. So I'm just sweaty and probably got throw up on me. So I'm gonna get to that, and I hope you guys edit with me or at least enjoy it. And I'll check back in once I've made a little bit of progress and let you know what I've decided. And of course, the moment I start editing, she wakes up. I'm gonna go get her and shower and hopefully come back a little bit more presentable.
howling at the moon.
Okay, I am still a little more than halfway through. I think I worked out a small plot next week, so I just put in some scenes that I'll be able to move around depending on where the story ends up and where I end up wanting to have them, rather than have them automatically have to be in a specific location. It makes it easier to kind of fit them in where they make the most sense while I'm writing. So far, I do still really like the outline that I've made. There's definitely a lot of stuff that I still need to work on that I'm realizing now. For example, I don't know what the magic looks like. I don't know what it looks like when the werewolves transform. So it's stuff like that that I really need to kind of hone in on and figure out so that I'm not, one, trying to figure it out during Nanowrimo, and two, forgetting what I decide if I figure it out, the first day of Nanowrimo, what all of that stuff looks like while I'm writing the story. I'm most likely going to forget what I decided. So it's better to figure it out in advance so that I know and I have like one set designation for what everything looks like that I can refer back to as I'm writing to make sure that it's all makes sense so that it's very moment. I don't know about you guys, but I've definitely done that multiple times. So, with that being said, I think I'm going to be able to finish the rest of the outline this week. Nash is definitely still teething. So I think I'm going to have to spend the rest of the day with her and then try and finish this up once she goes to bed or tomorrow morning once she wakes up. But I am still super excited for it. I know the last scene has a lot that I need to fix, so I'll probably work on that next week in addition to the other Nano prep that I have planned, and I'll talk to you guys about that next week. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll see you next week. You guys have a great week. You're doing awesome. You're gonna do awesome at Nanowrimo. Don't forget it, and I'll see you next week.